Hey guys, welcome to Boxing Squared for boxing news and views from around the internet. ZHANG ZHILEI, Joyce, all weighed in ready to go, and a bit of a surprise to some extent because both coming in significantly heavier than their first fight. I think maybe even heavier than a lot of people thought, both at career high weights. But judging by the looks of them, you can see here on screen, they don't necessarily look out of shape or anything like that, but you have a case of ZHANG ZHILEI, a career heaviest of 287 pounds. Joyce, a career heaviest of 281 pounds. So heavy weights. So also on the undercard, I'll just briefly mention this, you've got Moses Itoma, 237 pounds. He's facing a journeyman, Amin Bucheta. So maybe we'll talk about that at the end of the video. We'll see how it goes if I can remember, because sometimes those things slip by, especially when it's a forgettable fight. But yeah, a couple of photos here, the face-off. So we'll just have a look at these and then talk about the fight, because this obviously has some implications, these heavyweights, for the fight itself, how they're going to be fighting or looking to be fighting, and what one is looking to do to the other or trying to stymie the game plan, etc. So Joyce, he's a guy who normally comes in at, between 260 and 270. Since about 2019 to, this year sort of thing, generally he'd been weighing in around that 260 to 270 range. For the last fight, he came in at 256 pounds, which was one of the lower weights of his career, at least in recent times. And, he didn't look quite right in that first fight, and some of it was put down to, did he shave off just a little bit too much? But I would also point out, I don't think he fought the way that people were expecting, or even he expected he was going to be fighting. For that first fight, I think a lot of us thought he'd be boxing and moving, similar to the way that he did, a lot of sort of fundamental stuff, as he did against Daniel Dubois, was able to circle and move and sort of stay out of harm's way to some extent. But clearly, he was put off his game plan in that first fight by ZHANG. ZHANG, 287 pounds. So you look at his box rec, and this is his highest weight by some considerable margin. The 40-year-old, 281 pounds, or 87 pounds, I should say, for this one. Previously, his highest has been 278 pounds on 2 occasions. So this is not only uncharted territory for ZHANG ZHILEI, but also for Joyce. Remembering his highest previously was for that Joseph Parker fight, 271 pounds, 10 pounds heavier for this one. So, I've got questions swirling around in my mind regarding the mobility, all that sort of stuff, because someone like Joyce has spoken in the lead up to this fight about, he kind of overlooked ZHANG, that, he was looking past him, he didn't focus enough on the man in front of him, and he struggled with the southpaw style. And he said he's had another camp with southpaw sparring, but it's hard to get good southpaw sparring at the level that Joyce needs it, especially considering with the power punching too. And not only being southpaw, but the power, two things Joyce didn't handle in the first fight. I know a lot of people are going to say, oh, well, it was just the southpaw angle, but it wasn't just that. ZHANG actually rocked Joyce a few times. If you go back and watch early on in that fight, Joyce did a dance on a couple of occasions when he felt that power, and that was one of the points in the lead up to the fight that I'd spoken about. Joyce had never faced a puncher of ZHANG's sort of power and accuracy. ZHANG is a very economical puncher. He's not just going to waste loads of energy and waste loads of shots. And that's also probably because he knows that he has a tendency to tire out as well. And even in that first fight, we started to see signs that ZHANG was slowly fading a little bit, but he'd done such a number on the eye of Joyce that it didn't really matter. And the thing is, with the strategy here of putting the extra weight on, Joyce is not necessarily a concussive puncher. He doesn't have that sort of Deontay Wilder pop. He's that more heavy, thudding sort of power, and it's going to sap you, but it's not necessarily going to devastate you, but it's going to take a toll over rounds. And if he's heavier and less mobile, and maybe more prone to gassing, what's that going to throw up? But it's also the reverse is true for ZHANG, who at an almost extra 10 pounds above a career high, and he's already a guy noted to have a little bit of a suspect gas tank. The question is what's going to happen. But this extra weight, is it going to make Joyce more of a target for ZHANG to target that eye? if he's got the extra bulk and beef and he's not able to be as mobile as necessarily he would like to be in the ring, does that eye end up becoming another question mark, another issue, something that Zhang's just going to target early and try to basically force the similar sort of result as the first fight? I mean, clearly Joyce struggled with the style, the southpaw style, what Zhang was doing, but he didn't seem to fight the sort of fight he probably should have the first time. But is he just going to come in here and try to steamroll Zhang? Because he could totally walk onto something, and we could see that. I mean, but if Joyce is able to go in there and he feels like this extra weight is going to help him in terms of durability, because maybe at 256, bearing in mind, what is he just had a birthday? He's just turned 38 in the week of the fight, or last week was it? So 38 years old, and people forget Joyce is actually, he's not a spring chicken, turned pro at 32. The juggernaut style, eating punches and blocking punches with his face. You do have to ask the question about some of this. Has it started to catch up with him? And now he's put on a bunch of extra weight, 10 pounds more than his career heaviest, that he's previously fought at. There's a few warning signs, but it's also true for Zhang, who I think he must be thinking, I can just go in there, basically execute a similar sort of game plan, look to target the eye, be accurate and economical, basically walk Joyce onto shots and do the same thing. And if Joyce hasn't learned a few new tricks, which in the space of several months is going to be hard, because obviously there's not a lot of top southpaw in the heavyweight division that are 6'6" and above that have got power. I mean, the only one I can think about that would have the similar sort of power that's floating around, that might give the similar sort of sparring, is Bakadir Jalilov, who's 6'7" and can obviously crack as well. So, there's a bit of a shortage of the sort of sparring partners that Joyce probably needed to actually prepare in the way that he probably needed to prepare. I know Tyson Fury has sort of said that Joe Joyce should have sparred with him. I mean, it probably would have been valuable sparring to some extent, but Fury doesn't have that same sort of pop. And maybe that's just one thing that, Joyce can't prepare for. And the thing is, the extra weight, all that sort of stuff, it's not going to put muscles on his eye or anything like that, or make it any more durable. So maybe at the risk of being less mobile, he could end up being more static and still take a pasting to that eye and end up getting messed up. But conversely, Joyce must be thinking, the extra weight, if I can try to bully boy Zhang to some extent, maybe he's going to try to work a bit more on the inside rather than being sort of stuck at range, getting pinged off by accurate left hands coming in. I mean, we're going to have to see. I mean, Ismail Salas, Joyce's trainer, I believe he's still training him. He is, a real good game planner. So they would have gone away, and, I'm expecting to see something a little bit different from Joyce. But at the age, with everything sort of locked in the way he generally likes to fight, how much of a stride can you make in terms of the tactics and how you're going to perform in mere months? Zhang, basically straight up and down, no special effects, decent left hand, accurate puncher, economical with what he throws. He's not going to necessarily wow us to any real extent until the punches start landing and, starting putting a dent in Joe Joyce. I mean, I could see maybe Zhang sort of fading and, basically getting taken out, a la like Joseph Parker did when Joyce sort of ground him into the dust. But, Zhang hits significantly harder than a Parker, and we've already seen he can hurt him. Not just the eye, he did hurt Joyce on a number of occasions in that first fight, especially early on. And then Joyce, obviously, with the eye, the doctor got involved and it was waved off. Could be a very similar result. I don't see this going the distance. And if it does, both of these guys are going to be exhausted and falling down. So I did actually put up a poll a few days ago, and you guys 60% to Zhang for the win, Joyce 39%, 2% draw. So those statistics apparently is 101% there, but you get it. Basically, people are saying this is a 60-40 sort of fight, and after what we saw in the first fight, yeah, probably fair, but Joyce is well in a shout with this one. But that extra weight, I mean, and it's not just a little bit extra, it's quite a bit extra, 25 pounds different than the first fight. I mean, how's that going to, contribute to his mobility? Is he going to effectively be the same sort of static target for Zhang to sort of pop off on? I mean, he has sort of said he didn't quite feel right, and maybe it was dropping down sort of 10 or 15 pounds from his regular sort of fighting weight maybe affected him adversely. But, you know, he didn't fight the way he probably should have in that first one, where we expected him to circle a bit more, use movement, and basically let Zhang sort of punch himself out a little bit. Didn't see it in the first fight. I'm not expecting with the weight we're going to see that sort of strategy in the second one. So is he going to try to bulldoze him? And obviously if he tries, there's you know, a left hand that could be waiting for him. And it wouldn't surprise me if either guy gets stopped in this one. Do not see it going the distance. But I'm going to go with Zhang. I'm sort of maybe 55-45. I just sort of think maybe he's just got Joyce's number, and that what Joyce is going to try to do, he won't be able to do, because we saw in that first fight, Zhang was able to exert himself, and with the accurate punching, he was devastating at times. So I'm expecting we're going to get a repeat. But we'll see. I mean, if Joyce wins, it sort of throws all sorts of fights open to him. If Zhang wins, well, obviously at some point there's going to be a WBO title shot, you know, awaiting him. What are you expecting? How's it going to go? What do you make of both these guys? Career heaviest weights. Heavy weights for Joyce and Zhang ZHILEI. Repeat or revenge? Drop a comment loud and often. Hit like, hit subscribe. Follow me on Twitter. Boxing_squared. I'm out.